Hello, and welcome to another episode of Digging a Little Deeper into English with Kirsten, where we will investigate what successful language learners have done in order to transform their communication and make that career change they were looking for. So today I am interviewing my very good friend, David. I'll start by being very clear about this. David and I did work together at first, but he has become one of my closest friends. We don't talk so much lately, but I find David to be someone truly inspiring, probably one of the most inspiring people I know. So we started working together at BHP Billiton, the Abulu refinery, the nickel and cobalt refinery in Townsville, Australia. And David had just come to Australia from Colombia. And what a shift for him to go from Latin America into a regional Australian location was a huge shift. And I watched him navigate language challenges, cultural challenges with grace and style and a sense of stubbornness or tenacity that I have not seen in many, many people. So thank you so much today, David, for joining me. And why don't you start by telling me a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you're doing now.
Hello, my dear friend. First of all, thank you for the invitation and the amazing introduction. It's overwhelming to hear such amazing things in times like this when we have been apart from each other a little bit due to geographical locations. You are now in Egypt and I'm here in Australia. About me, what can I tell you? I think you have said it all. I'm from Colombia. I moved to Australia in 2008. We had the opportunity to work together back in the day with BHP at the Queensland refinery. I have to say that much war I have passed by. And today I'm working with the Maintenance Technology Institute at Monash University. I am a logistics and project coordinator, so I look after the contract management, the onboarding of the team. I'm looking after the product distribution in Australia and overseas. And as always, applying a relentless courage, stubbornness to get the things done. But yeah, this journey has already celebrating 14 years this year, and I'm very happy to see what else is waiting for me. So yeah, I'm happy to have this chat with you, and I'm open to have this conversation with a friend of mine.
To be honest, it's just so nice to talk to you again. You're always so helpful, so generous. So this is just a real pleasure. So I just actually want to dig a little bit deeper into what you experienced when you first arrived in Australia. So maybe you can start by explaining how much English you had studied before you arrived in Australia, how you felt about communicating in English before you arrived, and then you were thrust into the very strong accent and slang region of Australia, North Queensland, and what kind of difficulties that presented. There must have been many. I certainly can recall so many conversations we had during that time about language, but also a little bit of culture, cultural language, slang, things like that. Why don't you share with us what that experience was like for you?
Um, what can I say to you, Kirsten? Language and culture for me are two things that are very close because obviously words express the cultures. We name celebrations, we call our dishes, we colors, we clothing. You know, everything is expressed through the language to pass the knowledge, pass the information. So in Colombia, I study English all my life since I was a kid because my parents, one of the good things they did was to give me education, give me the tools. They had the vision that English was the language of the future back in the 80s, 90s, early 20s. So I studied since I was 6, 7 years old. I'm repeating, "Hi, my name is David." Anyway, um, I could no. I have classes at 8 a.m. in the morning on Saturdays, in a little cooperative that employees cooperative and all that. I studied in a private school, so the English level was very strong. But my breakthrough was on my 20s when I decided to take those English programs that they say, oh, you're going to learn English in 20 weeks, in 10 weeks, whatever. But the cool thing of these programs is you need to really do the extracurricular program. So listening, writing, chatting, all those boxes that they are there for you, you need to take that venue, and there is where you're going to improve it. So that's what I did, and that create my bond with my professor that are she's one of my closest friends today. So why this is important for me at the moment that I jumped to Australia is because with Angelica and Marta, they make it very clear that you need to hit the ground, lift yourself up, keep walking, you're gonna stumble, you keep walking until you learn how to do it properly. And that's how that helped me to get the job with BHP in Colombia because as a chemical engineer, I was very well, I mean, I would say I was bilingual, allow me to pass all the selection process with a high standards of English. But and I have to say that working with them, with BHP in Colombia, now South 32, Cerro Matoso, I had the opportunity to talk to the people from Australia, from Canada, from America that were coming to work with us as a contractor or whatever, because I was in the technology department. Similar thing that I ended doing in Australia. So working with that to explore more my language, but the moment of truth is when this Caribbean boy landed in Australia on the 26th of September of 2008, and I have to speak to the migration police and all these different bureaus that you have to pass through to get into the gates, and finally said, "Oh my God, I'm here." And it was very, very, very colorful because you are speaking and you are aware that you are saying what you should be saying. But the answer that I was getting, it was a little bit broken, short, words were together, sometimes was very soft, and it was very hard to pick it up. But yeah, I ended in Townsville. Thankfully, there were some colleagues already there that came to the rescue, and I said, okay, cool. First night in Australia, in this apartment, very pretty waterfront, ocean view. But my first day at Queensland Nickel was really hilarious because, to be honest, I didn't got one right. I mean, for example, we clash. We clash a lot based on because I was swimming and surfing and diving, knowing the barrier reef. I was swimming and diving in Lost in Translation. Um, so it was very funny and colorful the way that I used to say Safety, what Safety Bell? What is what it was? I have like a 3 or 4 words that were always colorful when I was saying them, and you were always correcting me, and my eyebrows, you know what that means. Dave is gonna kill somebody. But the biggest challenge for me wasn't my colleagues, the engineers, because most of us at the position we were all graduates from overseas, Russians, we have more Latin Americans, we have Philippines, we have Thailand, whatever. We have from everywhere. So it was okay. We have to use sign language or something, but we have to get it through. But the big challenge was working to the operational people because I can be wrong on this. So please, people who is listening this, don't quote me. My fellow colleagues have like they were like the archaeologists of that refinery. They were part of the refinery. They were built with the refinery. So those people have 200 years there. They have their own language. And I want to make this clear going back to the start of the conversation. Culture and language. So the refinery has its culture and its own language. So for me, every time they start to talk about burners, that was fine. But when they start to call one thing the blondie, the pumpy, the whatever, and I was just like, what are they talking about?
I'm so pleased that you brought up the fact that we clashed, and I did get a very big smile on my face, I admit, when you mentioned that. We did. We did. When you first arrived on site in Townsville, there was some language difficulties. You couldn't understand what I was saying. I couldn't understand what you were saying. And there was certainly a heightened level of frustration, and you're so expressive um, that there was no denying that there was some difficulties going on. And I actually look back on those days with such fondness because no matter how bad you found it, you never gave up. You just kept trying. You would walk away, calm down, come back. Absolutely. But that's where our friendship grew from. Absolutely. And yeah, I have to agree with you about the language of the operators. The refinery started in the 1970s. These guys worked there from that day. They worked with the same guys in the same office for 40 years. And they did have their own language, their own slang for everything. So not only was it a really strong regional accent, and you're right, Australians do squish all the words together and say it very fast. And then you didn't understand the slang. I found some of the slang challenging, not having been in the field with them for so long as well. So, absolutely, yes, challenging. I take my hat off to you for staying positive throughout that whole thing.
I never forget the day that I don't even remember that I have a notebook, a little notebook with me, and I used to play pictography 24/7 in that bloody place because what is this? How do you call this? I mean, what does it mean this? And people explain me, and 5 minutes later, I was going back again with the same thing. So it was a very, to don't extend so much on this topic, but I found it so hilarious because it brings so many memories of how many mistakes and how many times I have to apologize to people because what I was trying to say was taken in a second, yeah, in a double sense, and you are like, no, this is not what I mean. I'm talking
So, how did you do it? How did you stay positive through all that?
because that was the challenge for me. The beauty of the Australian language is yes, it has the wording of the British, but can have the rules of French. Literally, if you want to compare it, it's like a English, yes, you write it, you're writing the sentence, and you put every little letter that you got. But when you're gonna say it in Aussie accent, you broke everything. You put it together, you make a little twitch here, a little twitch there, or something that I found really in common with Spanish, the Australian slangs with the Spanish, is we use a lot of metaphors when we want to recreate situations. And I reckon that's part of our connection with the Aboriginal culture here. That they like to be very descriptive on the way that they acknowledge their dreams, their vision, their conception. That is very metaphysical.
Actually, you're right. The Australian language has been affected very strongly by the Aboriginal language. And it's only when you start to look at pronunciation, intonation, and you're right, some of the idioms and the slang that we use, that you can see that come through really strongly. That's really insightful.
So I don't know. I connected with that. I just to express and communicate and make a statement. So for us, that we can with our ideas of how we want to communicate or express something, it doesn't work because how many times I try to translate my jokes or I try to I don't know to be descriptive of something and the people don't get it because I was trying to use my photograph from Colombia to put it into an Australian canvas and it wasn't working.
Well, this raises exactly the reason why I wanted you to be on my podcast so much. You've done this. You struggled. You didn't know when you first arrived how to navigate the challenges, and yet you worked it out. You stayed positive. You cracked whatever code it is. Um, so, what do you have to share with people listening? What is it that makes that difference, that transition?
I have to say that I mean, to be fully honest with you, I you catch me totally by surprise with the way that you celebrate and acknowledge the obstacles that I have overcome because it's sometimes it is something that has become a habit or a routine. You see it as something that is part of your everyday and you don't see that they stack on top of each other and you are building something that today is David Australia 2023.
So, what would you tell young David? What advice do you have for people who are in the position you were in just before you came to Australia? What is it they can do to help this transition go more smoothly, to keep the positivity that you have shown through this whole journey?
Wow. I what I would have said to myself, for example, back in the day, um, I have to say that look, first of all, uh, fake it until you make it. I mean, practice will obviously help you to improve. But what is important is that you really wanna do it. That, for example, this opportunity in Australia caught me by surprise because I thought that I was gonna be fired, not gonna be transferred. What I would say is, first of all, don't be afraid to try it. Um, Second, understand that you are coming to somebody else's house, their house, their rules. So instead of getting frustrated with the language and some practices, try to ask yourself, well, you wanted to move to this country because of those rules, those opportunities, those benefits. Um, why be afraid to embrace them and absorb them? And that's part of the language. Eh, I have to say that if you're studying in your home country, don't be afraid to practice with others. Don't be afraid to pimp out somebody or make a friend from overseas and have some conversations.
Ah, yes, absolutely. Speak. I love this idea. find someone online, make a friend, find someone to speak with. As you know, I am also learning languages, and without getting that active speaking practice, we're going to just sound terrible.
Don't expect me that I'm gonna speak as beautiful as you sound, Kirsten. Um, but but I, but you have one of the blessings that that life, the opportunities can give you, that is to visit other cultures and be on the other side of the fence when you are the only one who speak English and nobody have a clue what do you want, and you start to figure it out. Oh my God, I remember the guys used to use hands, pointing, repeat whatever the other person is saying. So it's beautiful because you now, with the job that you're doing now, this amazing exercise you're doing now, you are putting in practice what you see others doing too. But yes, for those that are listening this, again, don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to misspell. Don't be afraid to be confused. Don't be afraid to get red because you thought that they were talking about something else, and things like that. But please try, try. Yes, engage with your community, celebrate your friendship, your language, your traditions, but also try to spend quality time to understand where are you today and what is expected from you in a positive way as a citizen of this world. And yes, try, try, and try, and be resourceful.
Well, David, it has been as fruitful as I had hoped and as fun as I expected catching up with you again. I have to agree with you. The key uh, for navigating language like this is being resourceful and having fun with it. If it's not fun, you're not going to do it. So, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. And I am sorry that this has been so long between chats. Um, I'm pleased I had the chance to pick your brains and share with everyone today. I am sure they will find it so useful.
No, it's all right. Seriously, I'm super delighted to have this opportunity to, have a friendship conversation, but also having some type of business conversation also, to support your initiative and this beautiful project that you're doing as your new career. If in the future you want to talk about something different, bring it on.
Oh, I will, David. Don't you doubt that for a moment. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to catching up with you offline after this a little bit more. Well, that's it for our interview today. To download a transcript of the audio, click the link below. You'll find it in the show notes. Don't forget, if you want to be notified when the next great interview with successful non-native English professionals in the mining industry is released, click subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. And if you are ready to take control of your English, transform your communication skills, and see that payback in your career, then shoot me an email at ksdsmith@gmail.com or visit me on LinkedIn. The links are again below in the show notes. Until the next episode, take care and keep on digging.